and welcome to Everyday Petrolhead. I'm your host, Terrence Anderson, and welcome to my channel. So we've reached that time. I've decided that after a lot of dealing with the issues with this vehicle, and after the diagnostics from the mechanic to figure out what's going on, and some of my own diagnostics, I guess it's time to make a decision, right? Originally, I was thinking restore it, do a whole bunch of things to it, mod it out or whatever. But the list of issues, although not expensive, if I do them myself, are just kind of tedious and time consuming. And with the fact that my wife and I are about to have our third kid, I don't think it's a wise idea for me to be overly involved in a vehicle at this time. Family is very important to me, and it's the cornerstone of my actual existence. So being that I've spent way too much time underneath this thing than we have on my wife's Ford Explorer that's normally right there, I think it's safe to say that it's time to move forward with prepping this thing for sale. First things first, today we're going to take her to the car wash. No, we are not washing her. Not because I don't want to wash the vehicle. I just don't see the logic if I'm going to be doing some repairs over the next couple of days in washing the car. But if I go to the car wash, I can use the degreaser chemicals to degrease the undercarriage of the car and the side of the engine bay where the oil is. And then on the drive back home, since it has been leaking rather profusely, I can determine where the oil is actually coming from. And then I can make a determination on what thing I need to replace first. I've got a list of items, and the total is less than $300, or about $350-ish, give or take. I don't remember, I have to look at the actual thing again. But overall, not that expensive if I do the work. That being said, if I have somebody else do the work, it becomes problematic and expensive. So does this mean that I'm done with BMW? Probably not, but I'm definitely done with this BMW. So I think the wise thing to do is to do the repairs I can do, get her prepped and ready, and cut my losses, sell it to somebody who wants to put more effort into her, and then move on to the next vehicle, make sure the family is good with what we're driving, and then after we're good to go, say about a few months down the line, then I'll get something else. It'll probably be more like a 5 Series or 6 Series BMW. I do love their V8s. I know the V8s are not exactly the easiest to deal with, but I do love the V8s more than the inline 6s. I do understand the 3.0 twin turbo is a monster and can be tuned like crazy. But something I realized, one of the problems you find with cars is if the engine is tuned beyond 80% of what it can handle, you then start to have problems. Like when I say that, I'm talking about power per liter. So, as an example, the BMW, the S85, which is the V10 motor inside of the E60 M5. 10 cylinder motor. It's a 5-liter motor. Puts out 507 horsepower. It's 110% of its power to liter ratio. When you start getting into those figures, you start to have more problematic scenarios occur. Whereas you look at vehicles like, I don't remember the exact specs, but the Lexus RCF is, a 5-liter motor. It puts out about, I think, 440 horsepower, and it works out to be roughly 80% of the power, or 80% of the power per liter ratio, and no problems. And if you look at most cars that are designed that way, they don't have problems. They may have their other issues, but when the car's engine is putting out more horsepower than, the size of the displacement of the engine, you start to run into some crazy issues. This car wasn't doing that. It's a 4.4 liter motor. It puts out 300 horsepower. Effectively, that's like 70-75% of the power to liter ratio. The problem is that they used some cheap manufacturing parts along the way in the engine, and these things were resolved in later models. There are models of this exact one that work perfectly fine with the V8s, but valve stems tend to be an issue regardless because it's a cheap part. So that being said, let's get to it.
Please listen carefully.
Okay, so most of the issues stems from the leak underneath here, which I believe is the alternator bracket. So the goal today is to clean up all of this crap and see what's really going on under here. However, the mechanic couldn't discern when he first checked if it might be coming from over here on this side, down in the by the valve cover underneath. So I'm going to clean a little bit of the side here and down over here and just get all of this gunk off of the engine. So what I think is happening is the oil is leaking onto the belt and getting thrown up onto the actual engine, and that's causing some of the splatter that looks like it's coming from the valve cover gasket, but I don't think the valve cover gasket is actually leaking. That would be great because that's one less thing that I need to replace before she's got to go. So I've gone ahead and put the degreaser all the way down on the side of the engine bay that's been seeming like it's problematic. So that way I can figure out what's really going on. I know that the power steering at the bottom tends to leak, so that's something I'm checking as well by cleaning this up. Figure I'll get all the grime off. I'll let it sit for a little bit and then I'll see what's going on. Other than that, it's all under here. All of that. I put it in, let it sit for a few minutes, and then we'll wash it off and then we'll drive it home. You know, going back to what we talked about with the issues for this car, it really isn't the car per se that's the problem. I know a lot of guys like to say that the E53 X5 is a problematic vehicle, and or BMWs in general are problematic vehicles, but really the problem is the previous owners just really didn't take care of her, and I didn't do pre-purchase inspection, something I've had to learn to never ever do again. I will make sure I always get one. Again, normally I get my cars from, you know, a Ford dealership or a Nissan dealership or a Toyota dealership directly. This is the first time, well, second time I bought a car from some random side dealer, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Except for Solomunjan's guy. Solomunjan's guy is very legit. Avi does his damn thing when it comes to his cars, and I don't know if I can afford an Avi car because Avi does not play. But outside of that, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, let's give it a few more minutes and then we'll clean her off. Okay, in a bonehead move, I forgot to turn the camera on as I rinsed off all of the stuff. But the engine bay on this side is now clean. You missed all of that. Me basically pressure washing it. I know you're supposed to steam clean an engine if you really want to get all the grime off. But since I'm doing this myself, I just figured I will get as much of it off as possible and then try to diagnose where it's coming from. And if you look underneath here, you can see it's a lot cleaner than it was before. So yeah, let's take her for a drive and get to the diagnosing, and hopefully we can figure out if it's really this thing, the alternator bracket, or if it's the valve cover gaskets above. All right, so I've went ahead and cleaned the engine bay, well, at least the left side of the engine bay where all the problems seem to be. And from what I can see so far, it looks like I got all the grime off of a couple of components, which is helpful because now I can take a look and see what's really going on. It's going to be hard to tell you what's going on here, so I'll just take a look under and I'll, you know, surmise afterwards if I see anything. But the bigger issue is it's time to look underneath and see if there's anything going on in the or near the alternator bracket, because that will really tell me if that's the real problem. All right, so as we go underneath, doesn't look like anything is dripping just yet. But again, I just washed it and it's still drying. I'm gonna take her home and let her sit for a couple hours, and I'll take another look underneath over there. I know there's a huge mess at the house, but that might be helpful. But as I look now, yeah, I'm not really seeing anything. Look, let me see if I can brighten it up a little bit for you guys. I'm not really seeing anything that looks like a source of oil, but I honestly feel like that's where it's coming from, the alternator bracket. So I think I'm gonna have to change that anyway. Also, even after I've changed the lower control arm, let's back this out. Even after I've changed the lower control arm, and I've changed the front control arm, the front facing control arm. So real quick, come on, there we go. That one, and the one underneath that goes across to right here, I still am hearing some clunking and I'm getting some shaking, and it looks like a little bit of wear already, and I can't tell if that's because of oil dripping on it or what. I'm going to take a closer look, but I need to deal with that oil problem, and then we can go from there. Yeah, that's what I found so far. All right, so it's a couple days later, and most likely the issue is the alternator bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with doing that repair. It's probably going to be a few weeks down the line because I've already started on a couple other issues from the list. And I think once we take care of that, that'll be it, because it seems to be centralized into one side of the car, and it's not like I'm dripping everywhere. I'm only dripping when the car sits. So I feel like it's because it's pooling at the bottom of the oil pan and it's seeping out of the alternator bracket. And when I'm driving, everything is slushing around and it ends up getting up and out onto the belt and gets splattered everywhere. So it seems like it's coming from somewhere higher, but it really is something lower. That being said, I'll eventually probably get around to any of the other issues related to oil, but first and foremost, let's deal with the alternator bracket. If you like what I've been talking about, like, share, subscribe, and join me next time with the Everyday Petrolhead. Thanks.